Hello and welcome. This is Social Studies, Voices Across America. I'm Bill Wood.
And I'm still Peter Goldsmith.
Still Peter Goldsmith. Peter, this is going to be, I think it's going to be a fun show. It's something that I put myself in the middle of it because we're going to talk about personal security and personal safety and personal fears. How are you in North Carolina? How are things going in your world? You feel safe in your world?
I do, Bill. I feel very safe where I live. That being said, I wonder about all the security stuff. I really do. And I'll get into that as we progress through the show. I'll say two things. Number one, I do have a security system on my home. I have had in this particular house since we've lived here. And number two, I hope I never need it, but I do have it. And I live in the country, as you know. I live pretty far out in the country. I never feel threatened in any way, shape, or form in North Carolina. Never.
That's it's a curious thing. There was a time, and I'm sure you feel the same way. For crying out loud, you teach martial arts. There was a time in life where we would walk down the street with dollar bills hanging out of our pocket at 2 a.m. and never feel alarmed for our own safety. But the older you get, the more vulnerable you feel. And I know that when I travel and maybe come home from the airport at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm concerned about who's there, what's in the shadow, and what's going on. You feel that way?
Bill, I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't. I think a lot of this stuff is hype. I really do. I think someone has latched on to this quote unquote security business. And, statistics are in the eyes of, in this case, the hands of the beholder. You can make a statistic say anything you want it to say. The large security companies will tell you every 3 seconds there's a break in here, there's this there, there's this that. You better have security, you better have this. And I wonder if it's not just commerce coming down on our heads again, as they do with most things, and trying to scare us into buying a product. I really wonder how effective these systems are. Now, I'll give you, for instance, a personal experience. When I moved into this house, my wife and I moved into this house. We were transient at that point. We were living somewhere else, and we were traveling to Los Angeles and to New York working, and we only were here part-time for the first year or so. And my wife suggested that we get a security system, that she would feel better, if I weren't here. And we were city folks at the time, and now we live in the country. So it was a big transition for her and me to some extent. And so we did. And we got one of these companies. I'm not going to promote them because they're not paying us. But we got one. And the guy said, oh, you should do this and do that. Very, very nice guy, very knowledgeable, very personable, And I said to him, in my belief, if somebody really wants to break into my house, and I have all the things that you suggested, they'll break into my house because they can circumvent these systems. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, you're right, they can. However, the kind of people who circumvent these systems are professional major criminals. When they look at your house, Peter, they're going to realize you don't have anything inside your house of value, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a put down. But anyway, and he said, these systems are designed to keep the petty thieves, the drug addicts who need to steal for their habit, away from your door. And they will work on that. So my answer is, okay, and we went ahead and purchased a system, and it has worked spotlessly since we've had it. I guess it's over 8 years now we've been in this particular house. So I think it's okay, but I just think, truthfully, Bill, I think this is a selling thing, and they scare everybody into doing anything. It's like we had on the airplane, I don't know, 10 years ago, that nutcase who had explosives in his heel. Remember that? Oh, yeah. And now you got to take your shoes off until you're 75, but then you don't. So what? When you're 74 years, 11 months, and 29 days, you're a terrorist. But when you're 75 years and 1 day, you're not?
I don't know. Maybe Well, you lived in a big city. You lived in New York. You know what?
Born and raised. Yeah, born and raised.
And living in Los Angeles most of my life, I lived it behind my own front door. I had a house. The apartments that I had their own front door. But the last couple of places I lived, there was a gate, and you had a key to get in the gate and to get to your front door. And I felt a little bit of security behind that. And where I live now, there is a gate that comes down. It's to keep the honest people honest, because you can walk around it if you wanted to. And we'll see that in a video that I shot just a minute. But I do feel some vulnerability, and I don't know that that is not real. I feel like bait. Same kind of feeling I get when I'm in New York City. And
Hey, wait a minute there, buddy.
I knew that would get you. As soon as that was working its way out, I was not going to like this. But it's not a matter where you live, but just where you feel safe. And somehow having this paraphernalia is going to make me feel safe. Let's look at about what's going on, maybe the difference between fear and security.
Good.
So here we are, Peter. We're about to see some of the issues. I want to bring up some things that are important and some things that are probably less important. Most important is your safety and security, but if it's fear you want to deal with, then we used to say if you're afraid, get a dog. But this is serious business. If you do have fears, go talk to somebody about that. But what we're going to talk about is just some safety and some security. Now, first of all, when you move into a place that might have some gates like this one, it's pretty simple just to walk around. It's only going to keep the honest people honest. I do have a little button here that we could use to open the gate, and you go right in. Pretty simple thing to do, just to walk around. So it's not something that's going to keep you completely safe. And if you do have fears, again, go talk to somebody. You see some of the places have garages, some of them don't. The garages, for me, it was an important thing because I find myself coming home late in the evening after an assignment or traveling, and I might have some a suitcase, carry-on, a computer bag in my hand, and I don't want to have to deal with that walking across a dark parking lot. So I have my unit has a garage that you could pull into and walk right into the house. For some of those, you could see coming up here on your left, there are garages that they can rent in addition to their rental on their homes. They could rent those, but you still have to pull into the garage and then walk to your home. If it's cold enough, you may want to just park right outside your door if that's available, and walk right in from there. So what I've learned, and this is my own thing. I don't know what security experts will tell you about this, but for me, I used to pull into the garage like everybody else, just drive right in. But there was once, many years ago, that I backed out and somebody was coming by, and I looked left, right, and when I looked to the right, somebody came from the left, and he was able to stop right on my bumper. So since then, I've tried to back into every garage that I've had, and I could pull right out. I could see easier. My field of vision is nice, and I can imagine, again, this is my own security and my own fears. I can imagine that if I opened the garage door and I backed in and somebody jumped into the garage, and I could drive right out. That's fear. and probably I need to talk to somebody about that. But pulling into the garage, it takes some dexterity, but if you could drive, you should be able to pull right into your garage. Pretty simple thing to do. Now, this is something I learned about myself. I was surprised. I'd never lived in a house that was on the first floor. My condo had a garage under it, so I lived there for almost 30 years, and the first floor wasn't on the first floor. When the apartment that I lived in, it had a garage under it, so I was on the first floor, but no one could look into the room, look into where I lived. But for now, this is the first time in my life I figured out there's no basement, there's no crawl space. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, don't get on me. Those are fake flowers that I haven't taken out yet. The people who lived here before me put those fake flowers in there. It's early March and it's cold, so no flowers are going to be alive right now. But let's get back to what we're talking about here. You see how close that is to the ground? It used to be that when you had a crawl space under a house or a basement, there was a little more room between the ground and the window. But this window is, wow, it's almost, you have to almost stoop to see into the room. This is the other window on the other side of the fireplace. It's right there on the ground. People can look right into your house if you want. These are the windows to the guest room, so I have them shut down right now so you can't see in there. You know, this is what the other side of those windows look like. We were just outside. You see the corner of the unit and the two windows, and you could see that there's not much back here. If somebody wants to come back here, they could be back here for several hours doing some work, and no one could ever detect that they're there. That's different than windows on the street. Somebody could at least see them and have some question, what are you doing? But you can back in the back of the house, and with nothing back here, just the trees on the other side of the little yard area, you know, they can work back there in these windows. You need to keep them protected, which I have. That's part of the deal there. You can see the two white boxes. That's part of the alarm system that's on the windows. Those trees, this is beautiful back here in the daytime when the deer come by. But what's also a problem for me, at least, is the train that's right on the other side of those trees. That dirt berm is, I'm told, was put there to have some sound barrier between the trees and between the house and the train tracks. Doesn't work too much. I hate to hear what it sounds like if the berm wasn't there, the sound barrier wasn't there, but that's what it is. It adds to the beauty. I'm told there's a whole ecosystem up in there. I've seen bunnies and all sorts of birds that you don't see in Southern California. Cardinals, orioles, bluebirds. There are a lot of them back there. And the deer. There's supposed to be a 3-point buck in there, but all I've seen is the deer. Now, I do know that this works. I was in the back of the unit one day when the maintenance guy came in and forced his way past the chain on the door. Unlocked the door, the system was alarmed, unlocked the door, opened the door, forced his way past the chain on the door, and the alarm started blaring. And it's pretty curious that I went out and said, "What are you doing?" And the next thing I know, I'm being cursed out by the maintenance guy for breaking into my house. Pretty crazy thing to do, but that's what happens sometimes when you have to deal with people that you'd rather not deal with. Funny how that works. Peculiar thing, it happened to me. Happened to me one day. Bam, there you are. Now you want to get into the house? I came home, the power was off, and I got the garage, couldn't get the garage open because the power was off, but I still wanted to come into the house just to get out of the cold. And the chain was still on the door. So it's a little simple thing just to, when you come in, put it on for your own security and safety. But when you're leaving, take it off. Now there's something that's pretty simple. That piece of wood there that's behind the door in the trough there. That's something that's pretty basic. If you don't have that, you should get that. Doesn't cost anything. Maybe $2 or $3 for the piece of wood. It's about an inch square, and it fits into the sliding area where the door would open, but it keeps the door from opening. It's a pretty simple thing to do, and if you have sliding glass doors in your house, that should be the minimum that you should have to keep the house a little safer. I have several of these cameras around the unit. If they are on, if they're activated, I could see whatever's happening in the unit. It's only about 1,200 feet, but I could see everything that's going on, even if I'm away from the house. I could call up the cameras and see what's happening on my phone through the app that the system provides. So that's it, a quick tour, and we talked about a couple of things. What we wanted to make sure was that there's three issues here. There's safety, there's security, and there's fear. Again, if you're afraid, go talk to somebody about those fears. Generally, this is a safe area. It's a very safe area. But if you do have some fears and you need more security for whatever reason, go talk to somebody about why that security is, why you find it necessary. And if it makes you feel safe, makes you feel better, go deal with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling safe in your own surroundings. I guess I don't want to call them fears, because I don't know that I was afraid, but my concern about my personal security and safety is very real to me.
Yeah, no, I think it is, Bill. And you said something very interesting before. You said senior. In other words, would you feel as vulnerable as you do now if you were 40 years old?
Well, 40, no, because 40 I went through a big house cleaning in this house to make myself I raced bicycles. I did a lot of running and ran in events. So yeah, but now as I go a little older and I do reach what would be considered senior, that is I just feel more vulnerabilities. That is real to me now. Maybe that's something I need to talk to a counselor about. But
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, Bill, because you seem to be more, what you're saying is more personal security as opposed to thing security.
Yes. Yeah.
So right. So when you have a security system, which we both do, we just saw yours. Mine is just simple. It's just got, all kinds of bells and whistles and keypads, and I have no idea. If I don't make it ring the alarm, I'm thrilled for a day. It's so complicated. But those are protectors basically of things more than of persons, because your person, once you're in your house and your door's locked, it's unusual someone's coming in for you. They may be coming in for your typewriter, or I guess nobody has a typewriter anymore, whatever. But that's why I don't feel that. I mean, as you said, you teach martial arts, and I do. And my teachers have always said to me, the best martial artist is the fastest runner. I mean, the idea of getting away from that is what I want to do. I don't want to engage with anybody at all.
If a bear starts chasing you and I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you.
Exactly. Exactly. And you won't, Bill, by the way. I'm a runner. You won't. And I'm scared of bears. But no, the point is, I think as we get older, we're told about, well, you're older now and you need to do this and do that now and take care of this and that now and be careful of this and that. I read a statistic this morning from the Department of Justice, actually, that 92% of crimes against seniors are in and around their home. Now, when I did a little more research into that, most of that crime is what I would term white-collar crime. Someone calling you up, posing as your granddaughter's best friend, or someone offering you a reverse mortgage that isn't, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not someone coming into your house and knocking you over the head with a stick. I'm sure that happens, but it's not prevalent. you know. And the idea is, and the answer to this is that they give, and I looked at, you know, ADT is a large security company, I guess. I don't guess, I know. And, you know, their tips were how to prevent seniors from so forth and so on. Well, the tips were inane. Don't hide your key under your mat. You know, don't leave your social security number plastered on your front door. Make sure your plant doesn't, you know, stuff that we all know. We all know. You know, real security in your house is probably, in my opinion, getting good locks, having secure windows, making sure to lock your door, which is something that we do now. We never used to do, as you said. I lived in upstate New York for a while, not actually upstate, in Westchester County. We hardly ever locked the door of our house. We never locked the door during the day, never. We locked it at night. We went to sleep because we did. We're both New York City people. We grew up, born and raised in New York, so we did. And here, where we live in North Carolina, we do lock the door all the time. I don't know why. We just do. We don't put the alarm on when we're home, but we do lock the door all the time. I just think it's a progression of things, and I think we're fed so much information from the media that we are aware of these things. You know, we are aware of that this stuff does happen. But I just wonder if it doesn't color the tone of your life, being overly, and I'm going to say fearful or concerned, whatever you want to say, of security. I mean, at some point, you got to live your life.
That's the issue, I think, when I was shooting the video. And it's the first thing that came to mind when I started was that there is a difference between fear and security.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid, deal with that. You know, if you see me crossing the street in front of you and you reach to lock your car door, that's something else entirely. And security, though, is something that is, especially in an era of social media, security can be you can be very vulnerable opening your email in the morning.
Absolutely.
The prince from Nigeria who wanted to, you know, to get some money from you, or if you, there's something that concerned me today. I can get pretty, you'll love this. I don't know if I told you this or not. I can get pretty aggressive about protecting myself from unwanted phone calls and email. If you sent me if I got something from Peter Goldsmith and it just said, "Hey, Bill, look at this," I delete it, because there's no telling what somebody has hacked into you and sent me a virus that I don't want. So in my phone stuff, I got a phone call just when I first moved into this complex, and I didn't recognize the number. It was a 614 number instead of a 213 or a Los Angeles number or an 800 number. So I just blocked it. It turned out that was the number from the security box that people would come. So people were coming and said, "Hey, it doesn't work. It just goes straight to voicemail." And I said, "It's got to work." So I would drive out to the gate and escort people into where I lived. And one day I just went to the office and said, "Hey, what's wrong with this? It doesn't work." And the woman said, "Can I look at your phone?" And she looked at it and went straight to the block list and said, "That's us. That's the machine."
So, oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
And it's worked fine ever since.
Now, let me just ask you this, Bill. You said that if you got an email from Peter Goldsmith saying, "Just look at this," you wouldn't open it because is that the reason that you never return any of my emails or any of the things I ask you to do? Was that an excuse, Bill, or is that the way you got on that?
Probably. But that's
sure,
a weakness of mine, and my daughter tells me I need to get over it. But you know, I have had too many viruses, none in the past, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, but I've lost too much information.
Sure. Yeah. No.
And you know, then now they get numbers and social, you know, personal security stuff that you know, is a concern, and you don't want to have that in this era where you're vulnerable digitally and not from somebody coming in to hit you over the head.
I think cybersecurity now is far more of a problem than security in your house. depending on where you live. I mean, if you live in a dicey neighborhood and your windows and doors are always open and you got loud music blasting and you got gold jewelry sitting around, well, that ain't a great thing. But for most of us, paying attention to our lives and making sure we don't, as you said earlier, walk around with dollar bills hanging out of our pockets. I think it's be smart, be aware, look at what you're doing, look at your surroundings, pay attention. That's fine. But I think the cybersecurity is something, and I think they prey upon seniors a lot with that, because most of us are, the term that my students use for me, not digitally native. What it means is you don't know your behind from a hole in the ground about this computer stuff. And it's true.
Not digitally native.
That's what they say. They say, well, I don't know how to do this and do that. They go, well, Peter, don't worry. You're just not digitally native. You're old enough that you, and they pour 4 keys and then it happens, But most of us use a computer for what we need it to be. Most of us don't spend hours and hours on a computer. Although, an interesting statistic, the average American spends 4 hours per day on his or her cell phone. Phenomenal statistic. Wow. I just read it the other day. I think it comes from the New York Times, or I read it in the Times. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. 4 hours a day. Let's say you're awake 16 hours, which is a really full day, right? 25% of your life is on your cell phone. That's the average. There are people who are doubling that.
To make the average, you got to have people that are
correct
way down here.
Correct. So those are the things I think are a concern to us, as opposed to our physical security. Our homes, our goods, as George Carlin called it. We used George Carlin once before on the show. Your stuff. Yeah. Protecting your stuff. But that's the problem that I see, the cybersecurity, because I think that may be real. I think it's way overly played on your home security for most of us. And I've been robbed before. I think everyone I know has at one point.
In an urban environment, you're vulnerable to that kind of thing. That's part of our own personal security that we have to watch out for. We can't encase ourselves in with a camera and an app on the phone that says, hey, you're about to get over the head, or somebody's about to rob you.
Yeah.
So we just have to be careful, and maybe in an urban environment, we're more aware of the vulnerabilities that we have over someone who lives in the country where they don't have to lock their door.
Yeah. And I think that the powers that be in their quote unquote quest to protect us have a method of frightening us to believing that we need them to protect us.
Yeah.
And I think, once you're frightened, you'll do anything to become unfrightened.
I think safety, in my estimation, the feeling of safety is a quality of life issue, and something that we all need to feel or have or address in our lives. Don't you, Peter?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you 100%, Bill, 100%. But I think realistically, we need to think for ourselves. I mean, that's the message that I always feel about these things. Think of what you're doing, who you are, what you really need, and what you don't need. I think that's really the key.
And maybe the real key is to take care of each other and respect each other. That's what we all boils down to.
Always the key, Bill. Always the key. Peace.
You can get this podcast. You can tell someone else about this podcast. It's available through YouTube, through iTunes, and through Google Play. Let's hear from you. Let us know what you think so that we can be in community with you. And there is a way to contact us. That's at peter@AgnitusLife.com or bill@AgnitusLife.com. That's our email addresses. Let's hear from you. Let's open up the forum.